Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Smalee, and today I want to take you on a little journey that I've been on, and that is learning how to propagate figs. Now, I did a video earlier, and I'll link that up above, that shows you what I did the first time I tried to propagate figs. Now, this was back in October. Right now, we're actually into February, so a lot of this video is taking you throughout a span of time between the time that I first started and now. So there's been some successes and failures, and let's show you what I've done so far. So this whole adventure started back in October when I found some hardy fig cuttings online for a good price and decided I wanted to try and root cuttings. So I watched a video by Millennial Gardener where he added vermiculite to the potting soil to hold moisture, and it didn't work like I hoped. I ended up getting a lot of rot and lost about half the cuttings. But when I pulled some of the cuttings out, I noticed that there were some rooting nodes and there was some really good green bark left. So I decided to go ahead and cut off the rot and try again. So I disinfected those cuttings in hydrogen peroxide, and then I decided to try and preserve some of the moisture since they were older cuttings, and found some of the old parafilm that I bought back in the early 2000s. It's over 15 years old, and it worked just like new. So parafilm is kind of a wax-based product that stretches easily, allows for airflow, and when you wrap your cuttings in it, it's actually used for grafting, but when you wrap your cuttings in it, it preserves the moisture so it's not lost out of the top of the cutting. So I wrapped all of those in parafilm, and I had about 5 cuttings left that were still good. Now I decided I wanted to try more than 5 just in case those failed. I bought another pack of fig cuttings, and the ones that I bought are Marseille Black, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correct, but they looked really good. I did hydrate them according to another video that I watched for 24 hours just in water. Then I sterilized those in hydrogen peroxide, and then decided that I needed to also wrap those in parafilm. So once those cuttings were done sterilizing, I took them and dried them off and then wrapped those also in parafilm. Once I got those wrapped in parafilm, I decided I needed to change out the potting soil. So rather than vermiculite, I decided we needed better drainage, so I went for a heavy perlite-based potting soil. So as you can see the difference, there's the new potting soil in the tree pots, and this is the old potting soil. And you can see that it didn't work really well. There was no real drainage. Now I made the potting soil with ProMix. I used ProMix BX, and then I mixed a bunch of perlite in it. So my goal was to create a well-draining potting soil, and as you can see in this clip, there's a little more vermiculite in it than there is in just the regular ProMix BX. Okay, so it's mid-January, and I feel like it's time for an update on my figs. Let me show you first the ones that have succeeded. We're having some failures, quite a bit of failures, but some successes. So let me show you the successes first. Sorry about the fan noise. It just gets too hot in here when I turn it off. But these are the figs that have had some successes. So you can see the start dates on these. Let me see if I had one that started sooner. Let me see if I can get the light right on that. So we have several different figs. I have started probably 30 figs, and these are the only ones that have had real true success so far. So we have a Ronde Bordeaux that I did from one of my own cuttings, so it was the freshest cut. It's had, a lot of these have problems with fig mosaic virus, but they seem to grow out of it pretty quickly, so fig mosaic virus is not an issue. The other issue they've been having is I've been trying not to rot them, and a few of them have gotten so dry that they defoliated, like this one, but I added water and it came right back. But let me show you the roots on these. These have had success, obviously success in rooting. Now what will happen with a lot of figs, and hopefully you can see that, what will happen with a lot of figs is they will sprout shoots without rooting, and let me show you one of those. Here's one where I thought I had success. I was really excited. The green popped out probably about a month ago and was steadily growing, and then it started to die. The issue was I was not seeing any roots in this cup at all. So let me pop this fig out, this cutting out, and show you what it looks like. Now I am taking a risk, obviously, of losing these completely. So this is what it looks like. Absolutely no roots. I'm not really, well, maybe it's callousing a little bit. Before roots happen, calluses happen, and there's a little bit of a callus at the bottom cut. But there's no real sign of roots. But when I rub the bark very gently, there's no sign of rot either. So I'm not going to give up on this one. We're going to try a different method that I'm going to discuss in a minute. So we're going to pot this back up. Here's one of the newer ones that I started. This is a Desert King. Started 10 of these, and so far we've had, well, they're not old enough to rot yet, but there's no roots. When I pulled this out, there was no roots at all, just like the other one, but there's also no new top growth, so I'm okay with that. And then we started a lot of them in tree pots. Now this is a Desert King, but let me show you right here, out of this tree pot, what we got already. This was started on December 27th, and it is January 19th right now, so not quite a full month. But look at the root growth on that. We've got a new little start, but we've got root growth to support it, so I'm really excited about that. Now these cuttings were in the mail for probably 2 weeks, and I thought for sure they died. But I soaked them overnight and then sterilized them in hydrogen peroxide. And this is what I got, but this is the only one so far that I think has any roots. So we're going to repot this one up really quickly so it doesn't dry out. So now we have this one potted up, and this is going to go in with my cuttings that are growing that have roots that are under light. So we're going to put that one up where it belongs. And let me show you what one looks like that didn't make it, that rotted. So if you look at this cutting right here, this is one of my Marseille Black VS. Now, obviously I'm not pronouncing anything correctly here except for maybe Desert King. But if you look at this, when you touch the outer bark, it just peels right off. There is no saving this cutting. It's completely rotted. And so I check my cuttings before I throw them away and make sure that they're not rotted. You know, like the one I showed you before was definitely not rotted, so there's still a chance for it to grow roots if we treat it correctly. Now we have several more here that we're still working with. This is one of the earlier ones that I planted. This is the LSU Purple, and it started to sprout and then it just stopped. Actually, I think I may dump this out and check for roots or see if it rotted. But this is, I don't know. Let's just try it and see. Let's see what happens. Now I hate doing this because I really, you know, if there is roots, I really hate disturbing them. I'm not seeing any roots out the bottom. But we're going to be very, very careful. And look at that. It's still, there's still green soft growth. This one up here died, but there's no roots. But I just don't know. I think we're going to keep trying because the bark is not sliding off of it. Doesn't look, let's see. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's rotted, but let me slice into it a little bit and see if there's any green cambium layer. So we've got my sharp grafting knife here. Let's just, oh my heavens, that's completely rotted. Is there any green cambium? But look at that. There is green cambium layer up at the top. So this is just, it's really trying its hardest to live. So let me cut it right below this node where we're seeing the green cambium layer. Now remember, this was put in the pot in October. So let's try this again. So we have a little node right here. This is going to make a really short cutting. But let's cut it right below that node. And if you look and see, that is not rotted yet. So let's try cutting it. I'm noticing that when you do the cuts, you know, before I was really reticent to do the cuts. You know, we're going to not cut through the node, but let's shave off a little bit more. Now when you get down to the white down here, and you can see this little light green edging that's under the bark, that's the cambium layer, and that's where all growth occurs. So let's just do 2 cuts. You can see that's really healthy still. This is just shocking me. Let's put the soil back in here, in my tree pot. Put a little divot in there, and then plant this. And let's see if we can get any growth on this LSU purple. Now I've been trying really hard to have success in rooting figs, and I've watched a lot of videos. And I found another video by Mike Kinkade, who's a guru in propagation, who just started propagating figs. And I'm going to try his methods. So I'm going to actually be moving these figs downstairs, the ones that have not grown roots yet. And I'll discuss downstairs with you kind of what I'm trying to do. And we'll see if we have more success with that. Okay, so what Mike Kinkade did on his video, and I'll link his video down below, he decided to propagate in a container that was filled with mulch, bark mulch, put it on a heat mat, and then put his figs in a cold area without a lot of light. Now, there are different reasons for him doing this, and I've read this, basically everybody who propagates figs say this. You don't want your figs sprouting green growth before they get roots. You can see how the one that sprouted green growth before it got roots, how that one just is starting to shrivel and die. Now, the reason it can do that without roots is it's expending the energy that is locked inside those little twigs. Now, you need water and nutrients to continue to support that growth. So we need them to grow roots before they sprout that green growth. So what Mike did, if you don't end up watching his video, is he lives, I guess, in a warmer climate than I do. And he took his fig trees out to his greenhouse and put a shade cloth over it, and then put them on a heat mat cranked up quite high. So the heat mat got his soil sometimes up to 90 degrees, kept it around between 80 and 90 degrees. Now I'm not going to take my soil up that warm, but I'm going to crank it up from what I had it, which was 76 degrees, to 80 degrees, and see if we can keep it at 80 degrees. Now I brought these down to my basement because my basement stays around 60, between 55 and 60 degrees. So the top area will stay a little bit cooler than the roots, and hopefully that'll inhibit the top growth while the roots get established. Now what he also did is he packed around each of his containers, he packed bark around it and then moistened that bark. The reasoning for that was that the heat could go up through the bark and keep the areas around the root a lot more warm than it would if there was no bark, if it was just air around them. And then he moistened that bark, for the same reason, so it will hold, so the pots will hold a little bit more moisture, and also so that the heat will be able to be held a little bit more. So now that we have these conditions here, I'm going to test this out and see if this works for rooting my figs. I've got my heat mat set to 80 degrees. We've got the moistened fir bark around the pots. There's not a lot of light down here. It's not completely dark, but there's not a lot of light. So hopefully we may start seeing some root growth. We're going to see what happens. Now I'm shooting this video over several months. I can't remember if I showed you my heat mat setup. So this heat mat right here is a large heat mat. Normally you just plug it in and it heats up to whatever temperature it's going to heat up to, and that's it. But if you connect it, like it plugs in right here to this thermostat, then you can regulate how hot the temperature gets. So right now you can see that the soil inside my fig pots is 72 degrees. And we know that because I have a temperature sensor that I put in the middle pot, buried it as deep as I could get it, and that's how you can tell what the temperature is. So that's the process that I've done to this point. And now the figs have had to come back upstairs. I'm using my downstairs for something else right now, so the figs have had to come back upstairs. And they were down there for about 3 weeks, so let me show you what they look like right now. So here are the figs that were up on my rack. We're going to be using that for different purposes in a little bit. But here they are, and these 2 new ones with the new growth are the brand new Desert King ones that just rooted. So we've got 2 of the Desert King to root. The rest are looking okay. We've got some fig mosaic virus going on. But we've got some Ronde Bordeaux, an Italian honey, 1 Marseille black, a couple of Desert King, and then I think this one right here is the Al Sicilian. So we didn't have a lot of them survive, but we did have some. So this is what has survived so far. This one right here in the cup is a Marseille black. This one's the LSU purple, and as you can see, there is still green on it, but there's no growth and there is no roots yet. So I'm losing hope that this one will survive. And then the rest are Desert King. Now they're all still alive. We're not getting any growth on them yet, except for this one right here. And let me show you what's appeared in those last few weeks, in the 3 weeks that I had it downstairs. Can you see that little root? I'm dumping everything. But we've got roots on this one. So I'm going to leave this in its cup. We're still on the heat mat, trying to keep it at 80 degrees, but the room upstairs here is around 80 degrees also. So if there's going to be leaf growth, the warmth in this room will probably spark that. But I'm hoping they've had long enough in the cool area with bottom heat to start forming roots, and we're just going to wait and see what happens. Now I definitely don't have room for all these figs. Matter of fact, there's 5 that I want to keep, and I don't really have 5 spaces in my yard for fig trees. So we're going to be working on that, trying to figure out where we can put those 5, because I definitely want to keep 5 of them. The rest of them we're going to either give away or sell if they survive. So we're going to continue on with this learning process. I really want to learn how to be successful cutting figs. Not that I want to do that for a living. It's just a goal of mine. I would really like to learn how to do that. So the next thing that I'm going to try is time of year. So we're in February, we're around mid-February, and I'm going to see possibly the end of February, beginning of March, if there's fig cuttings available, and see if the spring cuttings have a higher survival rate than the fall cuttings, the fall and winter cuttings. So anyway, I would love to hear what you have done to propagate figs if you've had successes, especially in colder climates, and what time of year has been best for you. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you, and if it has been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, put some comments down below, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.